So here's the thing about Kathryn McCluskey from Desperate Housewives. She was originally intended to just be a side character, but was so deeply compelling and fun to watch that she became a staple of the series itself, and from my view, was the guardian angel of Wisteria Lane during the period in which we watched it. This community relied on her, drew strength from her, and was basically run by her for the entirety of her life in Fairview. When we first meet her, she comes off as sort of a hard ass, always insulting Lynette's parenting style, her children's demeanor, and even invading their home, assuming that they stole her trinkets. But later in this very episode where we meet her, when Lynette brings the children over to apologize for, indeed, stealing her clock, as they tend to do, it's revealed that while she is definitely short with everyone and very, very nosy, she also harbors a lot of care for the families on the lane and knows the value of a mother's love through her own experience with her son. She never got to live through that full life of being a mother, as her son passed away due to an illness at a very young age. Therefore, she puts out immense care and caution into the world for everyone else's children, trying to steer them in the right direction, sometimes through harsh discipline, and looking out for them at every turn possible, because she, debatably more than anyone, can understand how valuable the familial connections on this street are. Like, yes, she is very annoying about the kids leaving their bikes on the street and forcing Lynette and Tom to pick them up rather rudely, but what if the kids go to grab their bikes and then they're struck by a car because they are in the street? It is at least a bit dangerous, and her fervor to protect them is completely understandable given her backstory. In season 7, even when Lynette's twins move out of Lynette's house and into McCluskey's, she acts largely like a mother and enjoys doing so. It's honestly so sweet to see, and conveys the idea that they'd established so long ago about Kathryn enjoying taking care of others, and will always be there for everyone's kids even if the parents don't necessarily want her to be there. And she also doesn't have anyone else to care for. Her husband additionally passed away before the show began, and for a while took up residence in the freezer in her basement. I'll return to that soon. And as I stated, her son is gone as well. They really show us the depths of her loneliness in the episode where Lynette saves her life by calling an ambulance when she passed out on her own lawn. Even though these two were constantly feuding before, like, honestly could not stand each other, to the point where Kathryn suggested that Lynette at one point be sterilized, and Lynette at one point chucked an egg at Kathryn's head. But McCluskey latches on to this relationship after she saved her and quickly moves close to Lynette, gifting her expensive lamps, confiding in her, and wanting to spend as much time with her as possible. It shows an extremely different side of this character, conveying just how starved for human connection she truly is at this point, and how much she needs just a close friend to talk to. I'm glad that the girls sort of embrace her over the coming seasons, involving her more, not just because she's fun to watch, but because she needs love and care, and deserves good friends, just as every human being does. And while Lynette at first only takes care of her and bonds with her through obligation, she does eventually grow to actually care for her, which I found a very realistic progression. But as the seasons go on and she grows closer to our main cast, we get example after example of McCluskey looking after everyone around her, but not necessarily everyone looking out for her herself. She takes care of Lynette's children when she follows Tom to Atlantic City, constantly gives advice mainly to Lynette, frequently babysits, slaps Tom when he's acting like a jackass, or when Lynette confides to her about what she learned about art, she quickly organizes the neighborhood and tries to make sure everyone is at least aware of the danger. Yes, I am definitely on Lynette's side for most of this episode, where if we don't actually have evidence or know that he is a pedo, then we shouldn't be harassing him, but it does speak to the lengths that McCluskey will go to keep her neighborhood safe, even if it is maybe a bit too far. Thankfully, in this situation, though, they all ended up being right. But at the end of season 3, when it's revealed that she has been keeping her husband's corpse in the freezer in her basement, a lot of the neighborhood begins shunning her, quietly gossiping behind her back, but refusing to actually check on her. The only one who is actually concerned about her and wants to go to her side to defend her is a fucking 7-year-old child. I actually do like this storyline, as it kind of cuts into a harsh difference between many adults and children, where children have this wonderful potential gift to not be bogged down so much by reality, critical analysis, and to simply follow what their gut says is the right thing, is moral. But adults are often more apprehensive, talking behind other people's backs, and not making the leap to check on them or actually learn the truth for potential fear of being included in the ridicule, or just just simple uneasiness about potentially forgiving her or hearing something unpleasant. And I think it's worth showing this because, you know, we as adults should adopt more of those qualities, giving people the benefit of the doubt, listening to other people's sides, and getting the truth so that we understand before we make such harsh judgments. And it's worth noting though, as annoying as I found the housewives during the storyline for not having Karen's back, it is at least pretty understandable, right? Especially for Lynette when she states her kids have had ice cream from that freezer. Like, yeah, I don't know, I would probably be concerned too about how safe and clean that actually is. But it does show how McCluskey doesn't really get a ton of love in return from the neighborhood. She's perceived as this grumpy old lady, and in this storyline even a witch, when in reality, she's one of the more caring presences on the entire lane. I mean, that's the resolution of the episode where we meet her, too. Lynette thinking that she would probably never like Karen, not really realizing that they have a ton in common. But one of the best parts of how this character is written is that she's not just some benevolent angel with no flaws that only serves to help others. She's a human, and she has limits, like when Tom continues demanding too much of her while she's also taking care of her kids. Completely reasonable that she would leave. Taking care of Lynette's kids is one thing, but Tom is a fully grown child and somehow is more bratty than all of the others. Also, when Lynette begins, albeit subconsciously, taking advantage of her friendship as a glorified babysitter, she draws a harsh line. We see in Something's Coming, the tornado episode, that she feels largely used by Lynette as a friend, even if they have definitely become much closer than where they began. And while I do believe Lynette was telling the truth when she said she genuinely cared about her, McCluskey was absolutely valid for demanding more from their friendship. As Lynette kind of uses her time and time again, I mean, even in this episode, Lynette comes to check on her, but is really just looking for a place for her family to wait out the storm. Like I said, it's not exactly an evil act, but you can definitely see Karen's point here. And then we see this come up again in season 5 with the whole Dave situation. She struggles to shake this perception of herself as a crazy old lady who overanalyzes and scrutinizes everything everyone does on the street and needs to mind her own business, and can't get anyone to believe her when she tells them that Dave literally broke into her house, rearranged her things, and stole her cat. It's a really tragic moment that still shows how Karen can sort of be treated as an outsider despite everything she does and tries to do for the people of the lane. I mean, this whole season, she is really just trying to protect Edie because she is genuinely worried about Dave's presence. But even this doesn't deter her, though. In the hospital, she calls for help from someone she knows will trust her, her sister, and they both unravel Dave's mystery, aiding in the police's investigation. Like, seriously, I think it's hilarious that the cops wouldn't have connected the dots without these two sleuths. It's pretty funny how terrible they are at their job and how competent McCluskey and her sister are. But it speaks to a real issue that I'm actually really glad this show brought up, where while McCluskey is sort of ingratiated into their circle, she is not fully recognized as one of the girls, you know, not participating in poker nights, although that might just be because she cheated that one time. But there are so many times where you can see that she is kind of ostracized by the community a bit. Not necessarily shunned or anything, as she goes to all of the events, but not necessarily embraced in all the goings on, as many of the other housewives are, even though she does so much for them. But later on in the series, I'd say mostly in the final 3 seasons, she becomes a more full character with her own storylines and developments. She becomes more of an integral part of the main circle, and she even meets someone new and gets married, Roy Bender. While Roy is definitely problematic earlier on, he ends up being an extremely dedicated and caring partner for Karen, renewing her faith in herself and showing that her life isn't over yet. There's still so much for her to experience and do. There's a lot of people who feel that there is a time in your life when you have to do something, and that once it's passed, it is simply too late for you. And Karen was no real exception to this. She states to Roy when they meet that she thought the rest of her life was about cooking for one, as she phrases it. But she ended up finding someone who gave her hope, who made her feel alive and passionate and sexy, and I think that is a beautiful and important message to convey. It is never too late. Just think about how many people there are out there in the world with your exact situation, waiting to meet someone who understands them just like you. You never know when it could happen. Seriously, and I really appreciate them doing an entire storyline where they develop McCluskey's relationship. They go through those very, youthful phases where she says she loves him and he maybe doesn't return it immediately and gets distracted, and that hurts her feelings. There's lots of great development with these two that leads into a beautiful marriage and him supporting her right up until the end of her life. And I think that they had a beautiful relationship despite Roy's earlier flaws. And I really appreciated that they included this storyline in the first place. It's really one of the best parts of the later seasons. And in terms of being a real friend, she really takes an active role in these later seasons. She is the one who makes the leap to talk to Kathryn while she's in the mental hospital, ensuring her that everyone will understand that she was going through a difficult time, mental illness, and though it may take some time for them to fully forgive her, they can absolutely go down that path and eventually reach that destination, moving past everything that she did. She even organizes the girls to come and support her, bringing her back to the lane and showing Kathryn compassion and understanding, when she previously felt that everyone would shun her or think of her as just a weirdo. And when Kathryn begins a relationship with Robin, McCluskey is the one who supports it the most. She tells Kathryn that if Robin makes her happy, she should follow that impulse, motivating her to move to Paris and live happily ever after with Robin. I'm sorry, what? What do you mean Kathryn comes back in the series finale? I don't think that happened. I've seen it so many times, and that scene doesn't exist in my mind, so she lived happily ever after with Robin. She also lets Carlos know about Gabby's growing emotional dependence on her doll, waking him up to the fact that he's been overly cruel to her and is blindly assuming that she is handling everything with grace okay, when in reality she is just barely keeping everything together. I mean, she's a little gossipy about it, but I do think she's genuinely worried for Gabby's mental stability at this point. She's just always gossipy, and ultimately she performs an act of great generosity for Bree in the end of the show, committing perjury to be able to acquit her and ensure that neither Gabby nor Carlos has to go to prison. This is quite a risky and bold decision to make, especially given how uninvolved she was in this situation for the entirety of the final season. Knowing that she doesn't have much time left, she's willing to risk it all to save her friends, who have full lives ahead of them, and to make sure that they're able to spend those lives with their families and those they love. My favorite, also, even after this, is that she meddles with Bree's love life one final time, helping her reconcile with her lawyer, the man she eventually spends the rest of her own life with. I mean, this is the final episode. Karen is going to pass away later on, but she is still expending her effort to try to make the community around her a happier, more fulfilled place, and to take care of the people that she feels deserves ultimate contentment. And after all this time, all these sacrifices, and so much uncertainty about her role on the street, the girls finally show their appreciation in return, caring for her and allowing her to pass in the home that she has lived in and loved for decades, as she has always wanted. The lane is her home, and she wanted to spend all of her life there. She finally gets to see vividly that they consider her a close friend and truly want the best for her, and I think it's wonderful that she gets this consolation before she passed on after everything that she did for them. Like I say, her bravery taking responsibility of Alejandro's murder is one of the most amazing sacrifices that we have seen on this show. And when she did eventually pass away, the show itself was over, and the community that she had watched over, housewife by housewife, begins to dissolve. It shows you a great deal how she was sort of the glue, holding this specific neighborhood, this group of friends together, watching over them all, protecting them. And that was the whole focus of this show. Not that she was the sole reason for their friendship, but she was the symbol of stability for this community. And without her, the lane that we knew just would never be the same, as the community she built begins to dissolve and move away without her presence. It's not like that's a bad thing either, it's simply how life goes. It takes us in different directions into new communities where we can find value. But it is worth saying that the show ends right as she passes, as if she is Wisteria Lane. I actually cried, by the way. Cried when she was shown with her son as Susan left the lane in those final few shots. Such a gorgeous resolution that was so deserved, as her death was such a tragic end to this series, and then they turned it into something absolutely bittersweet. She spent her whole life caring for those around her, making up for that love that she couldn't give to her son, and now she finally gets to spend eternity with him, caring for him and loving him as much as she always wished to, as well as looking on at these people she cared for who are still living and smiling as they chase after their dreams. I mean, in reality, McCluskey made this show what it was. Even if she isn't super present in the first or earlier seasons, her role overall and totally unique character, as well as the impeccable performance by Kathryn Joosten, cannot be understated, completely invades the audience's perception of the cast, installing her as an integral member that has always been on Wisteria Lane from the beginning, watching over them all, even if we didn't necessarily see her. And I honestly think one of the huge reasons I keep returning to this show is 90% for Kathryn Joosten's line delivery. I mean, this character's dry wit and sarcasm is like no other, and it's so beautiful that that type of character is also one of the most caring people on this show. But let me know if you agree in the comments below, and consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/PosiTVty to get extra content in the form of unedited essays and all of these videos before they come out on YouTube. But if you're here on YouTube watching, that means a lot to me. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, doing all of those wonderful YouTube things. Discuss further in the comments below. I always love chatting with you guys and hearing your thoughts, and let me know what you'd like to see from this channel next. I always appreciate recommendations as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to appreciate the people in your life who take care of you, who provide you support. It is so important to recognize them and give them some love. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. See ya!